I would like to start things off by inviting Mr. Robert Irving III to come to the podium and begin his keynote address.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me at the back? Okay. No microphone, so I'm going to try to project. So you're in for a real treat today. 7-course meal catered with wine from Bordeaux, aged wine from Bordeaux. Right? So you know that's an April Fool's. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in actuality, when I thought about the fact that I would be addressing educators, and let me just get a show of hands. How many are not music educators? Okay, so that's good. I actually am happy to see it. Who does education in the primary schools or in the elementary schools? That's a very good thing. It's very encouraging. And how many piano players do we have? Or you just have a good basic knowledge of piano? Okay. All right. So it's ironic that this is, I guess, normally an off day for public schools, and here you are, nevertheless, in a classroom, and not on this side of the class, but out there. And it's not much different for me. I'm a working musician, as you know. I worked last night with Nicholas Payton. So it's a very rare thing for a working musician to be up this early and with a suit and tie. And you know, Dr. David Hawkins, he said in his research, in kinesiology research, that a man in a suit and tie is 70% more likely to tell a lie. So I promise you I'll be in the 30% that tries to convey that which is true and relevant, and in a way I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, because I'm sure that you all are very passionate about this American classical music that we call jazz. And the perpetuation of it, the survival of it, is really in your hands. Because you are the ones who are not only creating a new generation of artists, but hopefully a new generation of listeners, appreciators of that art. And so when I thought about what I wanted to talk about, and I looked at the program today and the wide variety of programming that the Jazz Institute has put together with people like Robert Davis and Diane Ellis, and learning about grant writing and various aspects. So I decided to just to sort of deal with where music education was at one time, and of course we know where it is now, and we need to take it forward. But taking it forward is really, in a way, taking it back to what was. This list of names on the screen, many of you know those names as being the pillars of jazz. In fact, I can imagine that without these people, that jazz would not be what we know it to be today. Do you know what they all had in common, other than the fact that they were all Chicagoans and that they all grew up on the South Side? Yeah?
Walter Diet.
Captain Walter Diet. How many don't know the name of Captain Diet? Okay. Well, Captain Walter Diet was trained as a violinist, and he came to Chicago. He initially taught at Wendell Phillips High School, eventually moved to DuSable. And these people are the legacy of Captain Walter Diet. Can you imagine one music teacher that produced that much of a legacy. I mean, it's ironic that one school could produce people like Eddie Harris and Dinah Washington and Nat King Cole. I mean, it's almost unimaginable that that many people came from one program. So we're not even talking about the Herbie Hancocks at South Shore or Shaka Khan or Ahmad Jamal or any of them. Just these people. So I know for a fact that, not taking anything away from Captain Diet, that these people came to his program already prepared and already playing music at a high proficiency level. And that was because there was a theater program. And I was a part of that. In the mid-1960s, Captain Diet had already left in 1961. And so I grew up in Hyde Park, and we eventually, the house was sold. We moved to Robert Taylor Homes for about 3 or 4 years. And I was a student at an elementary school called Beethoven. So that was my first exposure to music. Of course, the school song was based on the Ninth Symphony. and the first song that I learned to sing in the Glee Club there in 5th grade, I guess, was Put on a Happy Face from Bye Bye Birdie. So I got this exposure early on of classical music, of show music, and then I became a member of the Drum and Bugle Corps, which was sponsored by the Park District at that time. And I was a bugle player, and that's fortuitous that I would play a brass instrument, considering I'd go on to work with one of the greatest brass players in the world. And so by the time I got to DuSable Undergrade Center, or Upper Grade Center, it was actually called, I believe. It comprised 7th grade, basically. I was drafted to play brass instruments. And so I was started off by Mr. Smith, who was a band teacher then, to play mellophone, which everybody knows is like the French horn, but with more like trumpet valves. And so I went on from that to baritone horn, and then kind of reverted back to the smaller mouthpiece to cornet, and then back to valve trombone. And so then there was a little break in there, about a year, when we moved further south to Chatham. And there was no 8th grade program at Ruggles Elementary School there. So when I got to Hirsch High School in '68, I believe it was, I quickly signed up for a concert band. And that was a program with George Hunter. Anybody know George Hunter and the Moonlighters Big Band? He was the director of a big band that at that time had people like Red Holt and L.D. Young. Louis Satterfield was actually the bass player, and he went on to become the trombone player, of course, for Earth, Wind & Fire. So these are the people that I was exposed to at an early age. And so I was placed immediately on slide trombone, which I had no experience with the slide. I was always dealing with the valve system. And so the guy I'm sitting next to was Edwin Williams. Anybody remember Edwin? Played with Mercy Ellis and went on to do some really great things. He's no longer with us. So George Hunter, as a band teacher, he was one of those type of music teachers who could pick up any instrument. If you didn't play your part, didn't care what it was, he'd pick up your instrument and play it proficiently, whether it was brass, woodwind, mallets, whatever it was. And so in that program, I even had to play tuba because I knew valves. And you know, people would say, you know, when I carried a trombone, that thing is bigger than you. So you could go figure, put me under a tuba. And so he stressed, as Miles had been implored by Dizzy Gillespie, Miles was told, if you really want to know your horn, learn piano. And so Mr. Hunter stressed the same to us. He said that if you really want to be able to envision or visualize what you do as a linear player on your horn, you've got to be able to see it and see the picture of it in terms of the keyboard. Guitar is a little bit different because of the way the notes are spread out. Harp as a polyphonic instrument, same thing. You can play polyphonic notes, but piano, you can see it all right there as a picture, as a big picture. And so I was already playing a little bit of piano because my family was a big gospel music family. We had probably now about 20 gospel musicians in both sides of my family in Chicago and in North Carolina. So I grew up just learning basic gospel idiomatic stuff, and I was actually playing for a church, playing organ for a church at the age of 15. But I didn't have a thorough knowledge of theory. And so George Hunter kept me after school, and because I was very inquisitive, I asked a lot of questions, and I bugged him. And so he showed me some very basic piano theory that sort of just opened my head up. And it's something that I just wanted to share with you because it's something that you can easily, if you play piano or if you know a little bit about the keyboard, can share with your students. And it simply was parallel fourths. So there's in the right hand, a G and a C, which are parallel fourths. And I'm going to just set the keyboard up so you can see. And he said, don't worry about what you're doing. Of course, you need to know what the names of the notes are. But he wanted to get me into just the visual aspect of what it felt like and the tactile feeling of the notes and being able to feel and see a pattern. So you got those two notes, and he said, just move your thumb down a half step. And so you had that. He said, now move your top note down a half step. And just continuing in succession, bottom down a half step, top down a half step. So you got that kind of thing going. Now in tandem with that, once I got that down, he said, okay, now you're going to add the defining tonic for each chord. And so you're going to start off with an A in the bass, and you're going to play the parallel fourth up from that. And then you take that down a half step, and you take that down a half step. So you have that pattern. So together, let's see if I can get it. Once I got that, just the feeling of it, then he talked about what that was, what I was doing. And it was simply minor seventh to dominant. So, which is the basis for all turnarounds in jazz. So, so I started to do this in all 12 keys, and then I started to think, well, what if, since the bass defines all that, what if I changed the bass from the A to the B flat? What happens? I'm going to put this down so I can play better. So it's a whole different sound. What if I move it down a half step from the A? So it becomes a very complex chord structure by just simply redefining the bass.